Hello and welcome to the Transformation Manager blog. Today we're going to have a look at Hashmaps. So let's begin. As we can see from last time, we built up our transformation, we've done some error reporting and logging, different things like that. But today we're going to have a look at Hashmaps, and now we can have things like that into our transforms. So if you recall, a few blogs ago we created our dollar document, which was our initial transform that would allow us to configure and set things up. And what we did in this case was we added a line to set our logging config. So what we're going to do is actually add a global variable for our hash map. So again, if we start that off, add our global. So in this case we'll call it global engines, and what we're going to do is define it as a JObject. And what we need to do is simply, if we reuse that there, and we can define it as a make JObject, and the object we want it to make is a java.util.hashmap in this case. So there we have our hash map defined. So let's have a look at where and how we can use it. So what I was looking at doing in this example, if we look at the input files, and again if we connect up to them, I'll connect to them all for now. But certainly the one of interest again is a turbine blades file. Move that down for a moment. And here we can see that we have reference to engine ID as we're going through our blades. So sometimes we use an engine ID 123, sometimes it's 345. So why not, as we're going along, we could keep some information about that and put it in the hash map for the engine. So in this case what we'll do is we'll just keep a count and populate the hash map with a count. So if I can move that down there, keep hold of it for now. And what we can do, if we swap over to our turbine blade to engine map, we can see we have it all already defined. But what we'll need to do is create some local variables that we can use so that we can start So let's create one, a local for the engine count, which will be an int, and we'll just have one called return count for now. Give us a couple. And what we can do to use them is we want to add to them, so what we'll do is we'll just put an if for a start, and what we're going to have a look is inbuilt function again, jmap contains key. So we select that, we pass in our global variable, and we need to pass in our engine name. So in this case, because we're actually using our source, so we want the engine name to go in. And what we're going to do is have our engine count, our local engine count. In this case, what we want is another jmap function. And if we have a look, it can be jmap get by key. And again, we'll use the hash map we're going to use. And then what we want is the one to look up, so we pass in the engine name. So that'll give us our engine count back if we have one. So now what we need to do is actually set those engine counts up. So in this case, if we've seen it before, because JMap contains the key for the engine name, then what we'll do, we can use another one, JMap add key value. Again, we pass in the hash map we're using. We're going to pass in the engine name, and what we want to pass then is whatever we got off the engine count, and just simply +1 in this case to increment that number. Else, we're going to do something very similar. We're just going to, in this case, the else, so if it can't find that engine name within the hash map, then we need to create it for the first time. And quite simply, we can just cut and paste, and then rather than having the variable, we can just pass in that value of 1. So for this engine name, in this case, the new instance, we'll just start it off with a 1. So that sets it up. So this means now that as we're going around, we're actually checking to see if the hash map, in this case our hash map called global engines, has an engine name that we're passing in from our source file. So if it does, it's going to get us our engine count out. And it will also increment that engine count again, so it'll increment it by 1. Otherwise, it's going to just initialize it to 1. So what we want to do now is just have a look at it and see what we're getting in terms of values as that's going through. So again, we can use our local return count. In this case, we'll use another one of our JMap. So in this case, we're back to get by key, and we'll pass in our hash map and our engine name again. And again, we could call this, so where we're doing this here, we could call it in any map. It doesn't have to be in this map, so we can add a note in here to say this could be called from any map that we are using. So as it's going through the maps and as it's migrating that data and the various bits and pieces that are related to it, then that hash map, as it's a global, is always available, and we can query against it and get values back out of it that we want. In this case, we're just going to call it directly below it for the sake of demonstration purposes. And again, we can use a simple print line to actually print some information out. So we could say engine and then give it a name. So we append our engine name, and then we can say has been seen, and then we'll append our local return count. So again, well, we can just really cut and paste that into there and append on times, so we'll know how many times we've seen it. And again, that's about it. That's where we want to get to with this. So we can print out and see exactly what we're returning and what the count has got to as the transform progresses. So when we're happy with that, we can build it. Once it's built, we can launch the migrator. We can press run. We can see the run's finished. This time what we'll do is go back through some of the output text so that we can see those print lines that were coming through. So you can see it's running it. We can see we have some of our other information out there for our costs. But here you can see engine Pratt & Whitney has been seen 1 time. You can see the engine Pratt & Whitney has been seen 2 times. We can then see that the Rolls-Royce A has been seen one time, and finally we can see that the engine Pratt & Whitney A has been seen for a third time. And if we switch back and we can have a look at the input file, then we can see we had the Rolls-Royce engine name. We can see we used that once, and we can see that we had the Pratt & Whitney in there 3 times. So it's a quick example of how to use things such as hash maps within our transforms, how to get that information back, and as we can see from this, that information that we pull back from that hash map is available to us, and we could reuse that anywhere. We could be pushing that into other transforms that are dependent further down the tree, or it could be back up at the top level aeroplane transform in this case, as it's iterating around each time. So things like that are available also within TM that can be used and utilized to make the life of the transformation easier. Well, thank you very much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.